welcome back to talk a little bit more about breathing. And now we're going to look at the more psychological and psychophysiological effects of breathing training. And I'm focused on kind of stress reduction and reducing that kind of chronic stress arousal state. So that's why what we talk about here is how we use that kind of slow, rhythmic, calming breathing exercises. And this is, of course, not all the breathing exercises there are. This is just one side of it. But we're going to talk about how to calm down the system with breathing exercises, how to use this kind of slow, rhythmic breathing to help in reducing stress and arousal. And if you've ever done yoga or Pilates, it's that kind of breathing that we're talking about. And I believe that learning to reduce stress, learning to calm down and manage stress can be very beneficial for dancers, dance students, dance teachers. So that's what we're going to talk about now. And we'll start by looking at what the research says. What do we know the effects of this kind of slow, calm breathing today? There's still a lot we don't know about, but this is what we know today. So research suggests that when we do these kind of slow, rhythmic breathing exercises, we can get long-term and kind of immediate benefits. So both instantly and also in long term, we can reduce stress. So we can reduce both physical and psychological stress, and we can increase relaxation. Again, both physically but also mentally, we can relax more instantly after doing these kind of breathing exercises, but also learn to relax more in the long run. The research suggests that we can gain calmer and more focused mental state by practicing breathing. And these next 2 points go hand in hand: balanced autonomic nervous system activity and improved resting vagal tone. Autonomic nervous system is one branch of our nervous system. Autonomic nervous system regulates our internal environment, like our heart rate, our breathing, our digestion. And vagal tone refers to the vagus nerve, which is one of the big nerves of the autonomic nervous system. And we're going to talk about these in the next few slides. But basically, improved resting vagal tone means that the vagus nerve is working more efficiently for us. It's doing its job in a better way, more efficiently for us. And doing these kind of slow rhythmic breathing exercises can help in improving vagal tone, how efficiently that vagus nerve works for us. But we're going to look at what exactly the vagus nerve does a bit later. First, we're going to look at the autonomic nervous system. So let's go to the next slide. So this is a picture of kind of the 2 branches of the autonomic nervous system. So even our autonomic nervous system is divided further into 2 branches. The parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. This is quite simplistic picture of the autonomic nervous system. So if you want to dive into it later, you'll find out it's more complex than this, but it's easier to understand how it works if we divide it into these 2 branches: parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. And all organs are innervated by both of these branches, and the organ's activity is controlled by the relative activity of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nerves. Let's first look at the differences between them. So if we look at the purple side, the parasympathetic nervous system, it's often called the rest and digest system. It's responsible for returning the body back to homeostasis after a stressful situation. So homeostasis being meaning the resting state. The parasympathetic nervous system helps the body to calm back down after being in a stressful situation. And it also acts to conserve energy, and it's responsible for psychological relaxation. So, for example, if you look at the purple side, it, for example, slows down heartbeats, and it stimulates the stomach's activity and also stimulates the digestive system's activity. So basically, when the body feels it can rest and it can digest, that's when the parasympathetic side of the nervous system is more active. And we have our, resting, calm heartbeats. The digestion is working. We're not stressed too much about anything. That's when the parasympathetic side of things is more dominant. And then if we look at the green side, the sympathetic nervous system, and this is often called the fight or flight nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system is responsible for preparing the body, preparing us for action. For example, if we are in a threatful situation. If we look back at the kind of caveman times, if there's a saber-toothed tiger threatening you, you need to run away or you need to prepare to fight that tiger. That's when the sympathetic nervous system kicks in. It kind of shuts down your digestion, it directs blood to the big muscles in your legs so you could run, and it increases your heartbeat so your heart can pump the blood faster, more efficiently to those big muscles working. So it inhibits your digestion, for example, because when you're running away from a tiger or when you're fighting, excuse me, you don't need to be digesting your food. So it is this more psychological arousal side of things. So the sympathetic nervous system is responsible for psychological arousal as well, and it mobilizes energy resources. So it's kind of the opposite actions from the parasympathetic, that rest and digest nervous system. But it doesn't need to be us running away from a tiger that activates the sympathetic nervous system. In the modern days, in the society where we live in, it can also be that psychological stress that makes the sympathetic nervous system more active. So it could be mentally stressed, mentally more aroused, and that might cause our heart to beat faster. It might cause our digestion to not work as well as it could. As you might know, psychological stress can cause all these things to happen as well. So then when we talk about balanced autonomic nervous system activity, we are talking about having the sympathetic and the parasympathetic side in balance. We need both. It's not like we want only the parasympathetic side to be active. and just down-regulate the sympathetic side of things all the time. We need both. Just like we need stress in our life, we need stress to get up from the bed in the morning. If there's no stress in our body, in our system, we can't get up, we can't put our shoes on, we can't leave the house. So we need stress. But the problems start to rise up when we are in a chronic sympathetic arousal, when we are in that chronic stressful state, when there is all the time too much, that kind of bad excess stress. So that's when the sympathetic side is more dominant, when we're chronically stressed, chronically aroused. And that's when we want to up-regulate the parasympathetic side of things. And that's where these calm breathing exercises can be very helpful. So the vagus nerve is the biggest nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system. So then when we're talking about improving the vagal tone, improving how efficiently the vagus nerve is working, we are talking about how efficiently the parasympathetic nervous system is working overall as well. And this is what the research suggests, that if a person has a high resting vagal tone, so if a person's vagus nerve is working efficiently for them, if the vagus nerve, the biggest nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system, is doing a good job, the research has found that people are emotionally more positive, so increased positive emotionality. And people who have high resting vagal tone are better able to regulate their emotions, so improved emotion regulation. And they're also socially more competent. These people are better able to handle stress, handle stressful situations, and also less depressed. So it's not only physical benefits, so it's not only better digestion, but it's also psychological benefits. We become better able to handle stressful situations, and we are more adaptable. So we can better adapt to changes in our environment, and this improves our capacity to respond to stressful situations in a way that helps us then bring us back to that resting state. So helps us respond in a healthier way, and also improves our capacity to come sooner, come better back to that homeostasis, back to that resting state. After we've been in a stressful situation, we can more effectively calm ourselves back down. And this could be a physical or psychological stressor that we have encountered. But what's also interesting, that in the long run, we are able to kind of raise our threshold of getting stressed. So if we are able to improve our vagal tone, we're able to bring our autonomic nervous system into a bit more balanced state, we can raise the threshold of getting stressed in the first place. It's a bit like you're doing running training. In the beginning, you get breathless really fast, really easily. But when you continue training regularly for a period of time, you notice that you don't get breathless so easily. You don't get so breathless at all. So it's the same thing. We can kind of raise the threshold of us getting into that stressed state, into that aroused state. And I think that's very important, very applicable to dancers who often live in quite stressful environments and train in competitive, stressful environments. So dancers being able to handle that stress and respond in a healthy way and being able to calm down, it can be a huge asset for a dancer. So training our autonomic nervous system to respond, to be adaptable through these kind of breathing exercises, it's like taking your autonomic nervous system to a gym. So here, this picture shows that we are training our somatic nervous system through muscular exercises. It could be dance, yoga, Pilates, going to the gym. And when we train the somatic nervous system that control our muscles, we are capable of doing more complex movements, exercises. We become stronger, more flexible. And the same happens with the autonomic nervous system when we do our breathing exercises. So here, RF breathing refers to resonance frequency breathing, which is one type of breathing exercise. I'll send you a video about that. So when we do these kind of breathing exercises, we are training our autonomic nervous system to be more flexible, to be more adaptable to different situations. And maybe someone who is not able to regulate their emotions, when they do this kind of regular breathing training, the result is that they are a bit happier because they are better able to regulate their emotions and just regulate themselves, their internal environments better. So it really is, these breathing exercises are a gateway to our autonomic nervous system, to our internal systems that we might think we are not able to regulate or control, like our heart, like our digestion. By slowing down, calming down our breathing, we can slow down our heartbeats. And in the long run, maybe we have digestive issues. If we are able to take a bit more control of our stress, our digestion will work better as well. So it's all connected, but breathing is a really quite unique way of tapping into those internal environments and internal functions. And I have here one more slide. So when we talk about this kind of breathing training, there are a few important principles that we need to include into those breathing exercises. Let's say you're going to practice breathing with your dancers, with your dance students. If you want to teach them this kind of calm, slow, rhythmic breathing, it's important that there is a rhythm in that breathing that you do or they do. So it's not just random, but there's a clear rhythm. Like in the video that I'm going to send you, if I remember correctly, it guides you to breathe in 4 seconds and breathe out 6 seconds, if I remember correctly. But there's a clear rhythm. There's a certain length for each inhalation. There's a certain length for each exhalation. And you continue repeating that rhythm. And then there's the pace. So it's important to slow down the breathing rate. Our normal everyday life breathing is about 12 to 20 breaths per minute. But when we slow down our breathing to these breathing exercises, we recommend people to breathe about 5 or 6 breaths per minute. So we really cut down the breaths per minute to about half or even less. So we're consciously breathing slower. And then smoothness. So it's important that the breathing is smooth. We're not just rapidly gasping the air in and blowing the air out. But we start to also regulate the smoothness of the breath. And not taking too deep breaths. We might recommend people to maybe take in a bit less air than they think they need. So the breathing doesn't need to be very deep, because what might happen with deep breathing is that we start to hyperventilate. We start to breathe too deep. And if you try that there for yourself, you might start to feel quite dizzy, because it's also possible to breathe too deeply. So we don't need to breathe very deeply for this. It's more about slowing down the breath, finding a rhythm in the breath, and allowing the breath to be smooth. And one way of doing this is to breathe in through the nose, especially when people are starting to practice this. Breathe in through the nose. We talked about breathing in through the nose whenever possible. And then breathing out through pursed lips. A bit like breathing out through a straw. So you use your lips to control how much air you let out, and you're trying to slow down the exhalation. Taking a calm breath in, and then breathing out through pursed lips. And making the exhalation just a bit longer than the inhalation. In our breath cycle, the exhalation is the calming part. Exhalation kind of triggers the natural relaxation response. So we can make the exhalation just a bit longer than the inhalation. But some people like to have exhalation the same length as the inhalation. It's not, that's not the main thing, as long as we find a rhythm. It could be inhalations, exhalations the same length, or for some people, exhalations longer than the inhalations. The research hasn't found if one is clearly better than the other. But the research has shown that having that rhythm is important. And making sure that the person feels comfortable with it. So it's roughly for adults about 5 to 6 breaths per minute. What the video that I'll send you is going to suggest. So you can practice with the video. And yes, and I just have my references here. But I can share these slides with you, and I am very happy to get questions. If you have questions about this, I'll send Wendy my email address as well. You can always email me, ask questions, and I'm very happy to tell you more. But yeah, watch the videos that I send in addition to these lecture slides and lecture videos. There's also a video about the diaphragm moving. Yes. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and we can continue chatting about breathing.